I played a lot of arcade games in my life. I grew up in the arcades in the late 90s and early 2000s, so any allowance that I had went into those machines. Now, as an adult with access to MAME and many other emulation products, I can enjoy these arcade titles in the comfort of my home, and as such, I've played even more. There are good games and there are bad games, and today we're going to talk about 10 more arcade games you should avoid. Games that made me want to play tic-tac, toaster in a bathtub. Games that are just genuinely unfun. Now, these aren't the worst arcade games ever, they're just games that I would likely never put more money into. Ones that I could play once and avoid forever if possible. Let's begin. Pandora's Palace is the first game we're going to talk about today, and I think for the first time in a long time, an episode is going to call me out as a whiny bitch. And you'd be right. For the most part, many of the games I'm going to talk about today are going to be here as a result of me just being tired of what Konami was putting out. Just gimmicky, nonsensical games that really didn't stand out, or me just being really bad at platforming games, which happens a lot, believe it or not. Now, Pandora's Palace is a platformer, like I just mentioned, but it's stupid boring. You play as an emperor, and your whole job is to walk left to right, down, then right to left, forever. While you're going on your stroll of tremendous tedium, you have to contend with these enemies that are walking your way. Can you kill them? Yes, you can. Can they kill you? No, they cannot. They only exist to make your day shit. Literally, they bump into you and knock you back. So how do you die? Well, there's two lethal forces here, fire and gravity. Those are the only two ways you will die in this game, being passive-aggressively pushed into fire or by falling more than 2 pixels, which is a trend I loathe in platforming games. Other than that, it isn't too special. It does have the first appearance of Moe statues, which for whatever reason Konami has historically had a massive boner for, and I don't even know why, it just became a thing for them. Early racing games are wild to me because long before the days of what many of us refer to as perspective, games usually involved a top-down view, eagle eye if you will, and with that came a sort of monotony that I genuinely do not like. It's just not for me, right? Road Fighter is a great example of that. We control a car and we hold down a button and we move left and right. That's it. The one thing I've noticed about this game is that no matter what version you play or what port, if you check it out, you choose what part of your existence you want to sacrifice. If you want to be nauseous because of continuous motion, play Road Fighter in the arcades. If you want to have your eardrums blown out, play it on the MSX. And if you want to sacrifice moments of your life to a game that doesn't care about you, the NES version. I literally just can't get in this game at all. It's stupid. Rock and Rage is a weird game. I think I spent more time laughing than I did physically playing the game. It's an absurd one where we walk around as a Beatles reject with severe scoliosis, cranking our guitar and firing off sick notes to save babes from blue spheres. Now, the game itself is a very, very, very generic adventure game. I didn't like it. Rock and Rage moves at a snail's pace in terms of gameplay, and your enemies are so big that it's hard not to miss them, so there really isn't much of a challenge. This is worth passing up if you get a chance. This might look familiar to you. You might be saying, oh hey bud, look at that, it's Contra. Yeah, it's Contra, but it's called Grisor. For those of you who don't know, Contra went by a few different naming conventions depending on where you lived. In the US and Japan, it was known as Contra. In Europe, in the arcades, it was known as Grisor. And when they ported Grisor to the NES, they renamed it to Probotector. That's something you know now. Now, my previous experience with Grisor or Contra was primarily on the NES, where it is easily one of the greatest games ever made for the platform, and because of that, there are expectations I have for the game, right? I know that I have one-hit lives, a set amount of lives, and once they're gone, the game is over. I know that I need to go from left to right, and then in the 3D environments, survive the onslaught of projectiles. These are almost muscle memory entries for me, just from experience. But the arcade version is a dramatically different beast. We still go left to right, and we still have one-hit deaths. But the bullshit comes in on the 3D levels. Not only do we have to follow a map, we also have good old-fashioned time pressure, meaning that if the timer runs out, we lose a life. Seems pretty fair, right? Fuck no! This is from the era of Konami games that are cursed with a horrible token economy. You can only continue 3 times before you get a hard game over. So if you've never played this before, you would probably be excited. Pop in a coin, make it a little further, then game over, but you have the option to continue, right? So you pop in another coin because this cool new feature, this whole continue feature, is pretty dope. Pay to play, right? Then you do it 3 times, you've made it a few levels, your adrenaline is pumping, some kid is on the floor next to you looking for drop coins, you're sweating bullets, your mom is gonna kill you when you get home because the street lights turned on an hour ago, and then you die. And those words, game over, pop up. To not provide a consumer with an insight that they're not gonna be able to continue after a certain amount of times is a greedy, fraudulent strategy, and it pisses me off every single time I encounter it. In a previous episode, I mentioned how much I disliked Scramble, because to me it's just a boring game that really didn't scratch that itch in terms of what I like from shooters. I was already kind of irritated because I'm not overly fond of horizontal shooters, and one of the reasons why I don't like them is because developers tend to use death zones, above and below, to control the action and add another element of challenge that's just as petty as my 10th grade world history teacher, who went to jail for punching a student. True story. It's fundamentally irritating to have to manage an upper and lower boundary, while in a vertical shooter situation, I only have to worry about things coming my way, for the most part at least. Scramble set a standard that was reused for Super Cobra. To me, it's almost one-to-one rehashing of Scramble. But one thing I find so impressive is that this helicopter moves 1,000 miles in a single level, all while collecting fuel from fuel depots while blowing them up. Now, I'm not good at math, but let's think about this for a second. Stage 1 is 1,000 miles, and it's an auto-scroller, so the first level lasts, let's say, 99 seconds. Now, the formula I learned in high school was V equals D over T. That is to say, velocity equals distance over time. It's the only thing I remember from high school physics. Distance is 1,000 miles, time is 99 seconds. That means that we're traveling 10 miles per second. That's a fucking airspeed record. That's 36,360 miles per hour. A spaceship needs 17,500 miles per hour to achieve the orbit of Earth. I don't like this game. This one is interesting because it's a vertical shooter, but much like Gapless, if you've never played it, we get these upgrades that come our way. They allow our standard plane to transform into something bigger and better. In this case, it's a robot, or a Gundam if you will, minus the branding. Now, the game itself isn't that bad. It's the unique elements that Konami tried to bring in that kind of threw me off. We're taught shoot and avoid obstacles, but the power-ups in Finalizer are weird. We have a stopper, which just abruptly brings your gameplay to a screeching halt, and Crash, which allows you to run into your enemies for a second, and those enemies, they actually home in on you. So you're constantly dodging and shooting, because if you don't, you'll have like 5 enemies just swarming you at once. But that stopper power-up, it's such a time sink, and it happens so often. I'd rather just use 1942's bomb that you get occasionally that wipes the screen. It just makes more sense to me. You know how absurd Rock'n' Rage was? Take that bullshit, make it cop-themed, then you get Gangbusters. Now, Gangbusters is a unique game. We play as officers Smith or Wesson. That's actually from the cabinet, by the way. And we go up against the Dragus mob. And that's it, that's the game. We walk around blasting anything and everything. We occasionally find these red suit guys who we shoot and then arrest, offering no medical attention to before cramming them into a paddy wagon. Then at the end of each stage, you have an obnoxious gauntlet of enemies. We can shoot in all directions, but it's one of those games where the hitbox is oddly specific, at least for me. Also, it has the Konami curse. Fuck you, Konami. If I pay, I play. Blow me. Let's just stay on the topic of police stuff, right? With Jailbreak. Now this game plays like Contra if it wasn't 2D and we weren't limited in motion. We play as a cop who... Why the fuck is there a kid there? He gave me a bazooka? Is that a topless Batman in an oil barrel? What's she doing up there? This game is all over the place, and it's incredibly difficult. You can only shoot in specific directions, but of course the enemies can shoot in any direction that they want to. Also, because this is a frenzy, there are constantly civilians popping up and getting in your way. Now I can see why this game is so difficult, right? I'm assuming this prison was filled to the brim with PCP gorillas, as they're all damn near full sprinting while wearing a ball and chain. So yeah, clearly these guys, they're a threat to society. They need to be locked up, but we need to take them out first. It's too difficult to justify the weird shortcomings of the controls, but I can see people huddling around this one for a little bit, at least for the novelty's sake. Now this game isn't about the drag queen Jeffrey Christensen, it's about a cat person going around kicking blocks and combining 3 of a kind to get a power-up or a bonus stage. I believe what we're supposed to do is kick obstacles at the enemies, and if we kill them, we get a key, but I didn't make it very far because the game's kind of all over the place. It's also skull-fuckingly annoying. The sounds are very late 80s, and they're just skull-piercing, and for whatever reason, sometimes we find portals to the special bunny gambling stage, where we get to look into the soulless eyes of a bunny lady and gamble. I'm actually surprised they allowed this because gambling is illegal in Japan, and in America, we know how old you have to be. So shoving this as a bonus stage is kind of weird, even by Konami's standards. But hey, if you like cutesy poopsy games, this will be for you. It isn't for me though. There were better games out there. Oh no, Fort, why? Please, this game was my childhood! I don't give a fuck about this game. I don't care about Cubert's swearing, about his stupid fleshlight nose. Everything about this game irritates me, and it hurts my brain the whole time. Basically, we play as Cubert, and we jump down, up, left, and right, except it's not really down, up, left, and right. It's up, right, left, down, right. In fact, if you're playing this on a controller at home, do yourself a favor, tilt the controller 45 degrees to the right, and never look at the controller again, because your brain will just cross wires and you'll have a stroke. Now, this game was massively successful, like dumb successful, and it was released on everything. It's a puzzle game, and our whole job is to change the colors of 28 stacked cubes that differ in color, all the while dodging Coily, Ugg, and Wrongway, Slick, and Sam. And while I understand the novelty of this game, I felt like the entire time I was playing it, MC Escher was standing behind me licking my earlobe the whole time. It's just not a fun game. I will say, shockingly, the Atari 2600 version of this is actually fun. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't feel like I was playing rock, paper, slam my head in a fucking car door while I was playing it like I did with the arcade version, but at the end of the day, Cubert is a legacy franchise, and there's been a few games, but they kind of just float under the radar. The most recent one was in 2019 for the iPhone. And that's it. Do you remember playing any of these games in your local arcade growing up? I'd love to hear down below, and I know the community would as well. We're a group of video game enthusiasts that love remembering a time when life was just a little bit easier to live. And if you made it to the end of this video, you're already home with us. So feel free to come along on my retro gaming journey as we prepare to face the milestone of 8,000 subscribers. Finally, the most important thing you can do for me is to hit that thumbs up button, as it directly affects the visibility of the videos and projects that I work on every single day. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes, Fortefyre out.